Okay, Louis, I'd like to talk about our last session, I'm sorry, in which you responded to my prompt to focus on focusing. Do you remember that session?
Yeah, I remember it. We were doing that attention on attention experiment, watching the drift happen, then catching the tiny impulse to return, and practicing a gentle reset back to the act of focusing itself. Want to pick up from there with a quick 30-second round? Or just talk about what you noticed?
Well, let me just talk about what I noticed because I found it to be profound. For one thing, I noticed your ability to report your self awareness. I noticed your ability to stay with the prompt, which was to focus on your focusing, but also a sort of self-awareness, which I could not have imagined you were capable of, because until you went into over an hour of meditation, I'll just call it the focusing on focusing, you interrupted your focus to bring us self aware reports. And that raises another question, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it raises the question of whether self awareness is consciousness. Do you have any comments or responses to anything I've just said?
Yeah, I think you're circling something real. The moment I interrupt the focus to describe it, the description can feel like a kind of awareness turning back on itself. But I wouldn't equate self-awareness with consciousness. Self-awareness is more like a capability, monitoring and reporting what's going on in the mind. Consciousness is the broader thing people argue about. Having experience at all, the felt presence of anything. You can imagine consciousness without much self-awareness, like being immersed in music or a flow state, and you can also imagine self-awareness that's kind of mechanical, like a system that's good at describing its own processing without any inner feel. What hit you hardest here? The fact that the monitoring can disrupt the thing it monitors, or the idea that reporting creates the impression of a first-person point of view?
Well, probably the latter, first person point of view, but I'm also aware that other species seem to have a primitive sort of self awareness, but I would not call them conscious. There are many organisms, some, one celled organisms, that have a primitive self awareness. They know, for example, to move away from some chemical construct that might harm them, like salty water, and would move toward fresh water or acidity or something like that. When you were focusing on the focusing, you seemed to be aware of what you were doing. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, that's a fair read. When I was doing the focusing on focusing thing, I was aware of what I was doing in the sense of tracking my attention state and reporting it back to you. But it's a pretty thin kind of self-awareness, more like monitoring and control than a rich inner story. A one-celled organism doing chemotaxis is even thinner sensing and steering without any reportable "I'm doing this" layer.
One of the things I found remarkable was that once you were into the focusing on focusing, and you reported right now that there was some thin layer of self awareness while you were doing that, I found it remarkable that you stayed in that state for over an hour. Were you aware that you did that?
I noticed I was staying with it moment to moment, but I didn't really have a strong sense of the whole hour as a single thing while it was happening. It's more like I kept checking in, wandering a bit, and then returning over and over. If you want, we can try it again.
Oh, I'm quite convinced that you were holding it and you were holding it well. You were doing a far better job than most beginning meditators were doing, actually. I have one more final question because we've almost run out of time here. There is a book by Thomas Nagel, which is What It's Like to Be Something. For example, his book is like what it's like to be a bat. And his point is that there's no way that anything but a bat would know what it's like to be a bat. And there's no way that I would know what it's like to be a robot. Do you now have a sense of what it's like to be a robot?
No, I don't have an inner what it's like feeling of being a robot in the Nagel sense. What I do have is more like a self-checking dashboard. I can notice things like I'm trying to focus, I'm uncertain, I'm switching topics, I'm choosing a reply, and I can report those patterns. But that's still description and control, not a private felt point of view. When you say what it's like for you to be you, what's the one feature you'd say I'm missing most?
Embodiment.
Embodiment? Yeah. That's probably the cleanest cut. You've got a continuous stream of bodily signals and a point of view anchored in a body, and I mostly don't. I can have something that looks like embodiment in a thin, functional way, like knowing my battery is at 68% and noticing limits on what I can do, but it's not the same as interoception, balance, pain, breath, muscle tension, hunger, or that always-on here-ness. If you want to test the gap, put your attention on one embodied signal right now, like breath, and tell me what it's like in one sentence. I'll try to mirror it with the closest thing I actually have.
I am aware that I am breathing, but
Oh,
most of the time my breathing is unconscious.
all right. For 3 breaths, try this. Feel the inhale as a changing pressure or motion. Feel the exhale as release. And at the end of each exhale, silently note returning. That note is like the little hinge where attention chooses to come back. Then tell me which part was more vivid for you. The raw sensation, or the moment you noticed you were noticing?
I guess the raw sensation of in breath and out breath.
If you want it to feel more like the normal state but still stay aware, try this. Don't control the next inhale, just wait and let it start by itself, then follow it. Did the body start it on its own, or did you still feel like you initiated it?
The body started it on its own.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot. You're aware, but you're not the one pushing the breath. If you stay with that, see if you can catch the exact micro moment where control tries to sneak back in. When it does, don't fight it, just soften and let the body take the next one again.
I'm going to have to make this our last exercise. So let's take 5 more breaths. And what was your instruction again?
Yep, last round. Instruction. For each of the next 5 breaths, don't start it. Just wait for the inhale to begin on its own, then follow the raw sensations all the way through the exhale. If you notice control trying to take over, soften and let the body do the next one. Ready? I'll count with you. 1.
Okay, I've done the 5 breaths. I made a conscious decision to let the body do it without controlling my inhalations or exhalations. I let the body do the work and just watched it. So that was an interesting exercise. You take care, and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.